Hey guys, Bidu here to tell you about the latest from Rivers of Nile, self-titled Rivers of Nile, out May 30th on Metal Blade Records. The album has 10 tracks, 51 minutes in length, and this is the band's fifth full-length studio album. They are an American progressive technical death metal band. Now, when it comes to the design of this record, this album is concise, compact, fluid, dynamic, engaging, and most of all, entertaining. It's a great album all around. It's not just a great collection of songs. It's not just great 10 songs put together. This album has an album experience to it. But Rivers of Nile have always delivered records that have an overall arching experience, which I find to be super interesting for the band, and it gives them a little bit of a DNA, at least as far as constructing albums is concerned. This record is no different from that standpoint. Perhaps the main difference of this album is that it's easier to listen to, it's easier to digest, it's easy to get into, and when you have that sort of ability to simplify the mechanisms of the record itself, you add a lot more playability to the album. So even though you have 10 songs in 51 minutes, the actual album feels like it's quite shorter. The shorter the feel of the record, the more you're going to play the album. So this record has all the right attributes to give the listener that sense of playability that it surely deserves. Now, once you get into the sound of the album, the main difference between this record and the predecessor is that this is not as dense of an album, and it's a more guitar-centric, a more guitar-focused record. It's more bare bones from that perspective. That doesn't mean that the album doesn't have a lot of layers. That doesn't mean that the album doesn't have a lot of texture. It just means that the guitars come in the forefront. Everything else is added on top of that, or I should say is added around it in order to make the sound more complete. But you're going to find that every single song on this record starts and finishes with the guitar sound, with what it's offering, the sound, the atmosphere, the texture, and the richness that it puts forward. That to me makes this album stand out from its predecessor. I think that quality of having a guitar-centric album is also what gives this album that more pulpability to it. It's easier to process if you're a listener because you don't feel like you have to peel a million layers before you get to what the track is all about. This album gives you everything on a platter immediately, so it's very easy to grasp the songs, the sound, and the record. Obviously, if you wanted to dive deeper into it, you can, and you're going to find that the album has a lot to offer from that perspective, but it also has an idea right at the surface by creating a focus on that guitar sound and making the album very guitar-centric. The other thing that it does is that makes the album a little bit more progressive than what I was expecting. Not to say that it lost the technical elements of Rivers of Nile. This is still a very technical death metal record, but it's perhaps a more progressive death metal record than it is technical. The reason I say that is because I find that the album concentrates more efforts on creating good guitar sounds, interesting arrangements, rather than trying to be as proficient technically as they could. It's more about quality, less about quantity. And I think that is a huge difference as well as far as this record specifically is concerned. The other aspects of the sound that I want to mention is that obviously you're going to get some saxophone. I mean, I think you were expecting that coming in, you're definitely going to get it. The main difference that I also see on the saxophone on this record versus previous albums, it's that it's better integrated into what the sound of the record is all about. It feels better connected with what's around it. It doesn't feel like it's been shooed into a song. It doesn't feel like it was parachuted into a track. It feels like it was just there and it needed to be there in order for the song to be completed, versus having it there almost as out of novelty, which I see with a lot of bands these days, adding either violins or saxophones almost to create a sense of novelty within the tracks. It's not the case with this record. The sound on this album, as far as the saxophone is concerned, really feels like an integral part of the construction of the song. The thought for the sax in the tracks was there from the get-go, not an afterthought. That to me was a really important element of this record's sound as well. The drums and bass for this album, the bass pops quite a bit throughout the entire record, which adds a little bit of a technical feel to the record. So perhaps what you're losing on the guitar sound from a technical standpoint, you're gaining on the bass side of things. But the drums are really there to give it size. Not to say that the drums are not heavy, because the drums are very heavy on this record, but they're not heavy to the point of overpowering everything around it. They're heavy more in a way in which they add size to the songs, making the tracks feel really big. The tracks on this album, every single song on this album feels massive in size, but it also has substance within that size, not like it's empty size. The drums really help fill in that size, create the size and fill it in, but the vocals are also a great element from that perspective, especially the dynamic between the clean vocals and the harsh vocals. I found that the harsh vocals on this record added a little bit of darkness to the album. Not a lot of darkness, but they added some darkness to this record. Obviously, they add aggression as well, and I think those elements create a nice contrast with what you get out of the clean vocals, which is more an atmospheric element, but also a live experience type setting. When you have clean vocals coming in, a lot of them with backing vocals behind them, there is a sense of size there. So you have the clean vocals adding size. They also add atmosphere, like I said, because the style in which they come in and how they are integrated into the songs really helps define the atmosphere of the track, at least the lighter side of the atmosphere within the track. And then the other thing that they do is that they add to that overall substance, to that overall size that the drums are already doing on a musical sense. So the clean vocals on this record are really important. They check a lot of different boxes in terms of what they add to the overall album. They're not just there to create vocal dynamics, they're also there to really help the sound become a little bit bigger, become more impactful, become more meaningful. So once you start to put all of these pieces together, I never thought I would say that, but I actually prefer this record over Work. And Work to me was my favorite album from Rivers of Nile up to that point. I think this album is more concise. It's more to the point. It knows exactly what it wants, how to get there in the quickest way possible, taking the listener along, not overburden the listener with things that are not needed, keeping a little bit more streamlined. This is definitely a more streamlined record from that perspective, still having all the great qualities of Rivers of Nile in it, and therefore makes it a much better album all around. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Dustman. Super heavy song. The drums, once again, on this song, really creating the size of the track or adding to that size. And then the guitars inject a lot of energy, a lot of texture into the sound itself. Now, it's a very driven, penetrating guitar sound that this track offers. The sprinkle of clean vocals throughout the track really adds a live experience as far as the vocal performance is concerned. If they were to play this song live, I think it would work tremendously well. Actually, I think every song on this record live will work very well. They're really built as live tracks, but recorded in studio. And this one is a perfect example of that because the way the vocals add to the track really gives a live experience to the song. And then you have the harsh vocals coming in for the aggression, for the intensity, creating an interesting dynamic between the two styles, but a song that's very rich musically as well. Then we have Despair Church, definitely one of the most impactful songs on this album. I love how vocally dynamic this track is, perhaps one of the most vocal dynamic tracks on the album, especially from an atmospheric standpoint. The clean vocals at times feel kind of psychedelic. At times they feel like they add this aura, this atmosphere into the song. Then you have the harsh vocals come in, adding a little bit of a different atmosphere, adding a little bit of darkness to it. And sometimes you have the sound being really heavy, really straightforward in your face, and the clean vocals still come in and still are able to lighten up that experience and create almost 2 layers of atmosphere, what you're getting out of the sound and what you're getting out of the vocals. So it's a very interesting track because it makes for a very volatile experience between this brightness and this darkness. It's a very volatile track, but it's never chaotic. It's about how you manage darkness and light together, both on a musical sense and on a vocal sense, without allowing them to bleed one into the other. Bleeding one into the other would definitely make the song very chaotic, and the song, while being stretched out to its limits, it never really loses its shape, and I think that's an important aspect as well. Last but not least, Evidence, perhaps one of the most straightforward, brutal songs of this record. It's a track that has more of a technical aspect to it than a progressive aspect, and I think that technical aspect really gives that straightforwardness to the song. It's more about its heaviness, it's more about the fluidity, how it moves. The backing vocals on this track, once again, bring a little bit, those clean black backing vocals, bring a little bit of a live atmosphere into the song, definitely impacting the song from that standpoint. But it's a track that really never loses its strength, and its strength, it's in that drive, in that heaviness, in that sense of brutality, and in the clear path and direction that it has from the get-go. This is it, Rivers of Nihil, self-titled Rivers of Nihil, once again out May 30th on Metal Blade Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Hit me up in the comment section. I'll see you all at the next video. Take care, guys.